Hello, welcome back to the channel. Today I have a review of Zack Snyder's Justice League, otherwise known as the Snyder Cut. This was an interesting one for me because I was one of the people who said it was never going to come out. And clearly, I was wrong about that. The reason I said that is because I knew the visual effects weren't finished. And I never thought that Warner Brothers would invest the money to finish them. But as it turns out, they had a new streaming service, and they had a pandemic. And during this pandemic, they couldn't make new content as easily. And so they threw some money at Zack Snyder, and he made this movie, or finished it. He already had a cut, which, you know, I was also wrong about. And I can admit that. I was one of the skeptics, long story short. And here we are. After I said it wouldn't happen, I said it wouldn't be good. And I was wrong about that too. This movie's really good. And that shocked me. I thought it was gonna be terrible. Honestly, I did. But it's really good. It is 4 hours long. I believe it was originally going to be released in 4 parts, and I think that could have worked, but I also think it works as a movie. Me and my brother watched it in one sitting last night, and it works as a movie, with a few exceptions that I want to talk about in a second that, I have some negatives, but I'm going to talk about the good stuff first. First of all, Cyborg in this movie. I'm sure if you've heard anything about this movie, you've heard that Cyborg is really good in this movie, because he is. He really is sort of the heart and soul of this story and of the team. He has the most emotional moments, and he has a lot more to his character in terms of what he struggles with than he did in the Joss Whedon version of this movie that released in theaters a couple years ago. And Ray Fisher is great. The character was not only more entertaining in this movie, but also far more interesting, because he had a lot more to do and a lot more that he was struggling with. Gal Gadot is great as Wonder Woman, as always. She had more in this movie. I really, really like her, and she has some really cool moments. The one thing I'm going to say about Wonder Woman is that every second she is on screen, she has a new theme song. She has some of the da-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na. Aside from that, she also has the ancient lament that if you've seen this movie, you've heard about 600 times. It's really overused, although I think it is fitting. It's a good theme for her character, but it is overused. Me and my brother were laughing by the end of the movie every time it would cut to Wonder Woman and it would go, ah. So there's that. It's a minor thing, just sort of goofy, but Wonder Woman was great. Ben Affleck as Batman is really good. I think he's a great Bruce Wayne, and a good Batman. I was still a little distracted by how thick his head is, and the fact that he couldn't turn his head. That's just a common Batman problem, but he does have a very thick head and neck that looks kind of weird to me sometimes, but that again is a minor thing. I still think he's cool, and he has more to do in this movie. He doesn't feel useless or sidelined. Superman, Superman I think was done well in the theatrical version of Justice League. He was fine in this movie. It's just that he wasn't in it much, and so much of the movie was surrounded about getting him back. And then once he's back, it just sort of feels like they move on very quickly from that, especially the team who just spent a lot of the movie taking some big risks to bring him back. And then once he's back, they literally just stop talking about it. I'm like, did you want him to come with you? Did you want to go talk to him and see what he's up to? No, we're just gonna... He'll show up later, I count on it. So that was a little weird, but I wanted to see a little bit more of Superman as a character in this movie. He has the black suit, which is cool. I don't prefer it over the red, yellow, and blue, but, black suit's cool. The Flash is also fantastic in this movie. He has some really cool moments, and his character's still funny. I was surprised by a lot of the moments that I thought were Joss Whedon's scenes that were actually Zack Snyder's scenes. And that was really interesting because Zack Snyder made The Flash funny, and he was. He had less, cringy moments like he did in the theatrical version. He was just funny and charming, and I liked him a lot. And I'm really excited that we're going to get to see him again in his own movie. And speaking of that, going back to Cyborg, I don't think the Cyborg movie's happening anymore. And, that's okay. If Ray Fisher wants to move on, that's totally cool. It just sucks that, that potential sort of was wasted. Then you have Aquaman. It's sort of weird to go back thinking like this was supposed to be before Aquaman. I like Aquaman. But it's weird that they're chirping under the water and then they make the air bubbles. Again, a minor thing, but it's kind of weird because it's outside of what we know about that world. But, he has some cool moments in this movie, especially, talking with the Flash and how they sort of build a relationship throughout the movie because they are sort of in opposition and then they end up having a friendship that's pretty charming. So I like that a lot. I like all of the characters. And Steppenwolf is significantly improved in this movie. I actually know what he wanted, which is a big plus. He looks a lot cooler. His, shifting armor thing, the metallic armor, is really neat. And he is also sort of a force to be reckoned with. He is not easy to take down, and that makes him a much more imposing villain, which is awesome. Darkseid was barely in the movie, and that's okay. It's just, I don't know that we even needed him. It's fine. It's fine because he's barely in it. It's just in the marketing. And I don't want to blame the marketing for something that the movie was doing. And the movie didn't want the marketing to, whatever. Those things are separate. But, Darkseid had nothing to do with this movie. And on that note, the first thing we see of Darkseid is he gets his butt kicked in, 1 minute. and then gets carried off to his ship. And we don't get to see him do anything cool. So it sort of doesn't set him up as a very threatening presence. But that's okay, because he's barely in it and barely matters. That being said, all of the characters are actually great, which surprised me because that's one of the weaker things from Zack Snyder's previous DC movies, is that he's such a great visual filmmaker. And that carries over into this movie, too. And speaking of the visuals, the 4:3 aspect ratio, I think, worked really well for this movie. I know why he did it, and I thought it was cool. I actually really did. I thought it gave it a unique look. And the color grading I also thought was actually fantastic, which I don't know that I've ever said about a Zack Snyder movie. Man of Steel and Batman v Superman both had really annoying color grading to me. It was unnecessarily dark. This movie has a color grading scheme that matches the tone pretty perfectly. Speaking of tone, this movie does have more humor than Zack Snyder's past movies. Not as much as Joss Whedon's Justice League, but it does have humor, and it actually is funny, especially from The Flash, as I mentioned before. So I like the characters. The visuals, are fantastic. There are a few visual effects shots that I feel like maybe they didn't have enough time or money to finish, but nothing glaring. Seriously, the movie looks good. And then in terms of the story, this is where I start to get into issues. I know I gave some nitpicky things, but those weren't real issues. Everything I've said so far I liked. In terms of the story itself, I think this movie was really good. Maybe great. But I think there's a fantastic 2.5-hour movie somewhere in this 4-hour movie. But that being said, I think Zack Snyder has earned the right to make a 4-hour movie. I'm totally okay with him saying, no, I'm just going to use everything I shot, because why not? Okay, that's totally fine. And I didn't mind that. Part of the reason I loved this movie is because it exists. And I didn't think it would exist. And it's good, and I did not think it was going to be good. Do I think that this would have been a better film if they had cut it to be about an hour and a half shorter? Yes. Do I think that the HBO Max release of the Snyder Cut needed to be less than 4 hours? No. I like that he just did it and went for it and sort of was self-indulgent and just sort of did the thing, and that Warner Brothers let him do it. I really respect that. And it's not bad, like, the fact that it's 4 hours isn't a bad thing. I do think, however, that as a film, it would have been better if they had cut some things out. A few examples would be the woman who sings to Aquaman and sniffs his shirt. Martian Manhunter randomly showing up to talk to Amy Adams, Lois Lane. I have no idea why he did that. There are a few things like that where I'm like, yeah, that could have been taken out, and maybe the movie would have been a better movie. But as the Snyder Cut, yeah, let's do 4 hours. Let's do it. You know, I'm cool with that. So, you know, the 4 hours did not bother me. All I'm saying is, you know, if this were gonna hit theaters or whatever, yeah, we could find a real gem of a movie somewhere in this 4 hour cut. That's all I'm saying with that. And then the last thing I have to say that is a negative is the epilogue felt incredibly random to me. I have no idea why it was included in this movie. It feels like 3 post-credit, or 2. I think the first part of the epilogue with Cyborg's dad could have been in the regular cut of the movie. The other 2 felt like post-credit scenes for a universe that's never going to happen. Look at me saying something's never going to happen. Because now there's this whole movement of, whatever it is, revive the Snyderverse or whatever it is. I don't think that's going to happen, even though I've been wrong before. So take my opinion on what will and won't happen with DC with a grain of salt. But there ain't going to be a Zack Snyder's Justice League 2. Part of that is because Zack Snyder doesn't want to do it. Part of that is because they just want to move on, man. I really think they're going to want to move on. That's just me. Okay. Now let's talk about the movie that actually we just watched. There's like a 10-minute scene of Batman talking to Joker that has nothing to do with anything. So we finish this movie, we get this big emotional speech from Cyborg's dad. It's inspiring, and it's cool. It's a great ending. And then we get this weird long scene of, oh, wait, I even forgot about, there are 3 scenes in the epilogue, where Lex Luthor is talking to Slade Wilson, which that was the post-credit scene for the theatrical Justice League. And then you have this sort of nightmare sequence where Batman, Mira, Joker, Flash, Cyborg, I think it's just them, are there in the desert, and Batman and Joker have a random conversation, which is cool because we never got to see that Batman and that Joker have a conversation, so it was cool to see that, but it's a dream, or a vision of the future, because I know that Zack Snyder said that his sequel to this movie would have followed the death of Aquaman and Harley Quinn, and so it makes sense because that's what the next movie was going to be, and so maybe it would have been a good post-credit scene, but that movie's not going to happen, so it just felt really tacked on. I don't want to get too bogged down in that, because like, it was random, and I was like, what? And then Martian Manhunter was there. I was like, what? What? It's leading up to something that's never going to get made, so, and that Zack Snyder doesn't even want to do. So I was just like, we just finished a really good movie. Why did you tack those scenes on at the end? I don't quite get it. But that's not enough to bring the movie down for me. It just was sort of like, we finished this great experience, and then there are like 3 random scenes tacked on at the end that don't make any sense for the movie we just watched. They make sense to tease something that is now never going to happen, but they have nothing to do with the movie. All that to say, I thought this movie was great. I thought the characters were great. I thought the story was good. I think that my one critique of the story is that I don't know why Batman is freaking out so much in the beginning of the movie when he hasn't seen any real threat yet. I think that the movie could have benefited from him knowing that Steppenwolf was on Earth already, just through any means necessary, just to have his journey feel like it has some momentum. But aside from that, everything about it's pretty dang great. And that surprised the heck out of me. I thought it was really good. It was just really cool. And I'm really happy it exists. So with all that being said, go ahead and check out the rest of my channel. Subscribe. I have more DC stuff, Marvel stuff, anything nerdy, it's on my channel. So check all that out. And I will see you in the next video. Bye.